Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanyamanobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Manojavam Marutatulya Vegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Varishtham Vatatmajam Vanarayotha Mukhyam Shri Ramadutam Shirasa Namami Kujantam Rama Rameti Madhuram Madhuraksharam Aruhya Kavita Shakham Vande Valmiki Kokilam Apadam Apahartaram Dataram Sarvasampadam Lokabhiramam Shri Ramam Bhuyo Bhuyo Namamyaham Dakshine Lakshmano Yasya Vame Cha Janakatmajaha Purato Marutir Yasya Tam Vande Raghunandanam. I hope all of you, myself included, are at the edge of our seat, wondering if this person Hanumanji is looking at is actually Sita Devi or not. All the symptoms so far indicate that she is. This chapter, and I sent you some more verses on our group. The first section ends with Tarkayam Asa Sita Iti. Through Karanadibihi, for all the reasons that Hanuman, with great logic, went through systematically and said, yes, this is Sita. Now we're going to go to the second section. And interestingly, the second section also ends with the same reason. Tarkayam asa Sita iti karanehi. Karanehi upapadibihi. That he came to this logical conclusion that this is Sita by using his intelligence and logic and put together pieces. So why two sections in the same chapter? So my understanding is, in the first section, all the symptoms that he saw are, in one sense, external symptoms. In this section, we're going to see some external symptoms and mostly a little bit more refined, subtler qualities. Because we have to be able to distinguish between non-Sita and actual Sita through both that is visible and that which is not visible. So we know Shabda. He has heard the greatness of Sita Devi from Sri Ramachandra, but he has never seen her. And now both Pratyaksha and Anuman have to support Shabda. Because in our scriptures we say that we hear, or that the Supreme reveals himself to us. At that time, there is Pratyaksha, although the vision becomes spiritual. In the case of Dhruva Maharaj, for example, he had heard from Narada Muni all the exquisite, wonderful features of the Lord by the name Prishnigarbha, from his toes all the way up to his smiling, beautiful face and head, his hair, his ornaments, his weapons, his form, his Shrivastha. Everything was described by Narada Muni, and that's what Dhruva Maharaja meditated on while reciting the mantra. So that was Shabda. That Shabda then transformed into an experience. And suddenly, the Lord was standing in front of Dhruva Maharaj, full Pratyaksha. That's how he knew that this is the Supreme Lord, both from what he had heard and then what he had experienced. So here too, Hanumanji is going through the external characteristics. She's wearing this kind of cloth. She's feeling emaciated. She hasn't slept. She hasn't eaten. She's been crying nonstop. All of this. And now we're going to see the more subtler symptoms. So we're continuing from chapter 15, verse number 27 onwards. The verse says, now Hanumanji is wanting to make sure. So he's now comparing that form of Sita that he had seen almost 10, 11 months ago to what the form he's seeing today. They look a little different, obviously. She's emaciated and all of that. Yet, he says, Hriyamana tada tena rakshasa kamarupina yatha rupa hi drishta vai tatha rupa iyam anganaha. Iyam angana, this woman that I am seeing today, I had seen when Ravana was taking her away. Hriyamana tada tena rakshasa. When she was being taken away by that rakshasa. Yatha rupa hi drishta. That form that I saw, tatha rupa iyam, is the same personality. Now, what we appreciate, because we are students of Ramayana, we are followers of Hanumanji is our hero. Hanuman's observation and ability to grasp details in a short moment of time is exquisite. They were standing on Mount Rishyamukha. There was this Rakshasa carrying Sita Devi. And they only saw for a few moments. And that too, they were down and she was up in the sky. And she was throwing her jewels down. He saw and he remembered that is the form of Sita Devi. So he captured all these in such a flash of a moment. And now from here on is the description of the personality of Sita Devi. Now Valmiki is also a devotee of Sita Devi, because remember, the reason for writing the Ramayana was Sitayam Charitam Mahat. That this is a compendium of the great qualities, character, form, names of Sita Devi. And a full description has to include the names, the forms, the qualities, and pastimes. So now we're going to get into this very intense meditation on Sita Devi. So he says, Purna Chandrananam Subhrum Charu Vritta Payodharam Kurvantim Prabhaya Devim Sarva Vitimira Dishaha. He's glorifying that, wow, her face is like a full moon. Purna Chandrananam. Subhrum. Her eyebrows are perfectly shaped. Whoever did the threading, if we say, she didn't have to go through that. She's just naturally so exquisitely beautiful that her eyebrows are perfectly shaped. Charu Vritta. Very graceful and well-formed Payodharam. Her breasts were very well-formed. It's part of her beauty. Kurvantim Prabhaya Devim. She was making the entire place effulgent. How? Vitimira Dishaha Sarva. as if the entire place in a dark night, the full moon illuminates the entire place. Sita Devi, by her presence, is illuminating. Now, from a more subtler meaning, where there is an enlightened soul, they can enlighten the entire place that is filled with ignorance. Therefore, Prabhupada would quote Chanakya Pandit, Eko Chandra Tamo Hanti, Nachatra Sahasrashaha Taraha. What millions of stars cannot do, one moon can dissipate all the darkness. So he's saying, Purna Chandrananam. Then he says, Tam Neela Keshim. She has very beautiful, dark, thick, black hair. Bimba Ushtim. Reddish lips, like the Bimba fruit. Right? In Damodar Ashtakam, we glorify Krishna as having lips that are like the pomegranate. Bimba Ushtim. Sumadhyam Supratishkitam. Very, very graceful, elegant waist. Not too thick, not too thin. She's not anorexic, but very well-shaped hips. And Supratishtam, very firm body. Sitam, this Sita Devi, Padma Palasa Akshim. Padma Palasha, her eyes are like big, broad lotus petals, very beautifully shaped. And Manmathasya Yatha Ratim. She is like Rati Devi, who's the consort of Manmada, Cupid. In this case, the Cupid is Sri Ramachandra, and his consort Sita Devi is Rati, like Rati for Manmada. Next, Ishtam Sarvasya Jagataha Purna Chandra Prabham Iva Bhumau Sutanum Asinam Niyatam Iva Tapasim. First of all, she is the one that benefits the entire world like the moon does. Purna Chandra Prabham Iva Sarvasya Jagataha Ishtam. Everybody in the universe loves the full moon. Whether they are the Devatas, whether they are the human beings, the Siddhas, the Charanas, even the Rakshasas, the Aboriginals, etc., who may not have very refined intelligence, but when they look at the full moon, Ishtam, everyone is pleased. So she is such a person who can please everybody just by her presence. And he's watching that she is Bhumau Sutanum Asinam. She has a very beautiful body and she's sitting down on the ground. However, it's not just a beautiful woman sitting on the ground. Niyatam Ivatapasim. You can tell that she has been following a very, very strict vow, like a tapasim, an ascetic. An ascetic is effulgent from their sense of self-realization. In Sita Devi, her whole mind is absorbed in Sri Ramachandra. And therefore, she is glowing like the full moon because Ramachandra is the full moon of her heart. Naturally, any person who is so absorbed in the Supreme Lord, they begin to glow. They have an effulgence that is very attractive. Although they themselves must be following very severe austerities. The austerity is to keep the mind on the Supreme Lord without getting distracted by the needs of the body, hunger, thirst, sleep, etc. She has transcended all that. And then, Nishwasa Bahulam Bhirum Bhujagendra Vadhum Eva. She is hissing. Actually, she is she is sighing out of this pain of separation. Bahulam means many times and very intensely. Bhirum, very loudly or strongly. Bhujaga Indra Vadhum Iva, like the wife of a king cobra, or she's the queen cobra. Why? Shoka Jalena Mahata Vitatena na Rajati. She is not glowing fully to her full capacity because she is covered by the net, Jalena, of Shoka, lamentation or sorrow or grief. Yet she is hissing like a female cobra. Samsaktam dhumajalena shikham eva vibhavasoho. This we heard last week as well. That she is like this fire or tongue, the flame that has been covered by smoke. Tam smritim iva samdigdhan riddhim nipatitam iva. She is like intelligence, smritim, iva samdigdhan, intelligence that is full of doubts, samdigdhan. And another analogy is riddhim nipatitam eva, like opulence or a treasure that has been neglected or thrown away or not used. So full potential is there, just not visible at this point. So when we look at the previous verses up until this point, Sita Devi is compared to the moonshine of a full moon, suggesting that her grace is beneficial for the entire creation. She's compared to the female cobra, suggesting that no one can dare touch her, especially a female cobra that is separated from her consort is very vicious and dangerous. One should not mess around with her. So it's a warning for Ravana. And it's also a warning for those who only want Lakshmi Devi without her consort Narayana. Then Sita is compared to a flame of a fire to suggest her Pativratyam or chastity to Lord Ramchandra. She is very pure, like fire. Fire is always very pure. Then the analogy we heard was Smritim Eva Samdigdhan, like intelligence that is tainted with doubts, implying that a person can actually be very, very intelligent. That intelligence can open doors or vistas of great amount of knowledge and realization. But as long as it is filled with doubts, that intelligence cannot be fully utilized. For example, so we have all these wonderful texts, the very sacred, Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Srimad Bhagavatam, all the works of many, many, many acharyas of our tradition and other traditions that are sitting on the shelves. And these are the books that allow us to tackle, face, overcome, transcend every situation of life, every situation. But if these treasures are not availed of, if one does not engage in sharpening one's intelligence by study of scripture, then what use are there? What use is that intelligence? A human being is given the greatest intelligence. This is why we say human life is very, very rare and extremely valuable. Adhruvam arthadam. Valuable because the human intelligence can help a person break the shackles of ignorance and passion and even goodness. And come to see one's full self as Atma, a servant of the Supreme Lord. Jivera Swarup Hai Krishnera Nitya Dasa. That is our constitutional reality, not just I am not this body. That's just a preliminary understanding. The aham brahmasmi idea is to help a person understand I am not this body, but that's only half the reality. Because the question is, I am not this body, then who am I? I am soul. What does a soul do? I am living. I am Sat, Chit, and Ananda. What does a Sat, Chit, and Ananda soul do? You can't say it just exists. A Sat, Chit, Ananda soul engages in uh, materially unmotivated and uninterrupted bhakti or seva. That realization and engaging requires one of the facilities is intelligence to break that shackle. And so scripture is that which sharpens the stone on which the sword of intelligence is sharpened. Then another analogy is riddhim nipatitam eva, like treasure that has been cast away. Generally, we hear the story of Yayati. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Yayati story is abridged. We hear that he was cursed by Shukracharya to lose his youth. And then he asked his sons whether they will exchange their youthhood to his old age. None of them agreed except Puru. And so Yayati became young and strong and virile again. However, the story continues. That Yayati, and this story is in the Mahabharata, the Yayati achieved heavenly realms. And just by his own, very rarely someone can enter heaven in their own earthly body. But Yayati's greatness was such that he could. And you know, every time someone enters heaven, they have to pass through Indra's test filter. And Indra Deva is always closely guarding his throne. So he didn't think Yayati is fit to be there. So what did Indra do? He very humbly went and meekly went to Yayati and said, "Oh, Yayati, you're such an amazing king that from earth you have entered heaven. I want to know what kind of austerities and punya activities that you have performed to get here." Yayati falls for this trap, and then he says, "Yeah, that's right." And he starts boasting about all of his things that he has done on the earth. And as he goes on narrating his own glories, oh, I did this, I did that, I did this, and I did that. So he's reading off his resume. Indra then tells him, "You're not fit to be in heaven anymore," and kicks him out of heaven back to the earth. Because there is a Vedic aphorism that punyam nasyati kirtanat. Punyam nashyati kirtanat. One who glorifies his or her own activities of great deeds, they kill the punyam. They kill all the positive karma that they need to go to heaven. So what does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Kshine punye martya lokam vishanti. As soon as that punya is done, one needs to go back. So Indra said, "Oh, that you have glorified yourself, bye-bye, back to earth." So a devotee must be careful. We are all practitioners of spiritual life. We need to be careful that we don't go gloat. We don't boast of our own activities and achievements. Of course, according to Rupa Goswami, in a very safe, confidential environment, Dadati Pratigranati is there. We say it not to glorify our achievements, but we seek guidance on, we seek more on whether our understanding is correct or not. We want to magnify and we want to enhance our understanding and realizations. So we do it in the mood of humility. But one should not boast about one's own meritorious work. Okay, next verse. Vihatam ivacha shraddham asham pratihatam iva sa upasargam yatha siddhim buddhim sa kalusham iva. So 4 more analogies of how, so these are all subtle, none of them is visible, right? So here now we first heard about intelligence. Then we heard about riddhi, which is opulence or treasure. Now we're going to hear about shraddha. Vihatam iva shraddham. When faith gets shattered, hatam. Vihatam means completely shattered. So when faith is like faith that has been completely shattered, like hope that has also been destroyed. Sa upasargam yatha siddhim. Like success that brings lot more obstacles. And buddhim sakalusham iva, like an impure mind or impure intelligence. These are the 4. So let's go through them. Vihatam iva cha shraddham, like faith that has been broken. Faith, shraddha, is that aspect that moves a person. Now I'm talking more materially. We'll talk more spiritually as well. It helps a person move from one stage of life to another stage of life. It actually helps a person cross great obstacles to want to better their life. That is called shraddha. For example, people have faith in, let's say, love. So people will cross and take on great challenges of religion, class, or this or that, and fall in love with someone else, and they will do anything to keep that love alive. Or someone has faith that money will make me happy. That's their faith. They will cross all sorts of boundaries to follow that, because faith gives strength. Some people have faith in some other role models, and they will do all sorts of things, take on austerities, difficulties, to buy a ticket for that concert and stand in line all night, because they have faith that that is going to give me happiness. Similarly, for a devotee or a spiritualist, that faith helps move towards the Supreme Lord. It's a force. Now, when that faith gets shattered or polluted, then what happens is the person has no motivation to doing anything, has no motivation for following anything, because they cannot trust anything or anyone. Therefore, it is the duty of everybody to strengthen each other's faith in the Supreme Lord, strengthen faith in Guru, strengthen faith in scripture, etc., because they are the impetus that fuels Shraddha, that moves a person closer. And when faith is shattered, one becomes cynical about everything. In fact, even daily activities that one has to perform, if the faith is not clean, then the person will not see any results from their activities. Suppose one is performing the activities of bhakti without sufficient shraddha, then it is only the body is acting. There is no fuel in it. And one doesn't see any pleasurable, or one doesn't see any good outcome from it. So it further erodes the faith. And therefore a person says, I don't get any taste. I don't get anything in it. Then Valmiki says, Asham pratihatam eva. Hope feeds faith. Asha feeds Shraddha. But when that hope is destroyed, then one loses motivation, not only for doing, sometimes they lose motivation even for living. Actually, every devotee holds on by the thread of faith. Yesterday in our WhatsApp group, Parama Karuna Prabhu shared this verse from Stavavali about Rupa Goswami writing that the devotee is like the Chataka bird who's always eagerly looking at the cloud. Sometimes the cloud gives a shower of fresh water, and sometimes it gives a flash of lightning. Yet, for the Chataka bird, that cloud is his favorite person because he's nourished by the cloud. Similarly, the devotee says, "Oh my Lord, sometimes you can punish me, and sometimes you show me great favors of mercy. Regardless, you are my Supreme Lord, this way or that way." It's unconditional love towards you, like the Chataka bird. In that poetry, there is a second verse. And that second verse, Rupa Goswami says, "Oh my Lord, the killer of Agha," because all our sins have to be removed by Lord Krishna. "Oh my Lord, the killer of Agha, when I hear about the great devotees of the past who have performed fantastic devotional service, I look at my very meager, useless so-called bhakti, and my heart burns because I'm lazy. I am just not motivated for anything. Yet, I also hear about the waves of your mercy that inundates the entire universe. And one drop of that gives me great hope." Asha Bindu, he says. Asha Bindu Ukshitam. Ukshitam is to be sprayed, to get a little drop of it. He says, just by hearing that one drop, that you are very kind and merciful, that one drop of Asha makes my heart very, very calm, peaceful, and cooled from that burning. Shaitam. Shaityam means Shita is cold. Shaitya means a sense of coldness. My heart becomes very pacified and cold from that burning. So it's that Asha, whatever it is, a devotee should never give up hope. However horrible the situations might be, however, one always has hope that Krishna's mercy is there for me. It may be a small drop, that's all is enough. That one drop can inundate my life, and it is always available. Next, Sa Upasargam Yatha Siddhim. Siddhim is, or Siddhi is success. But Upasargam means obstacles. Obstacles getting there and obstacles after that. So what is the use of that success that only puts a lot more obstacles? Then he says, Buddhim sa kalusham eva. Kalusham means impurity. Sa kalusham, along with or with impurity. The mind or intelligence, we know from Bhagavad Gita, that a pure mind helps elevate a person, and an impure mind degrades a person completely. So Krishna says the mind can be your friend or can be your worst enemy. An impure mind causes more problems, and whatever a person does, problems keep on increasing. But a pure mind solves problems. And so one should be careful as to what kind of food is fed to the mind. We feed food to the body. That is vegetables, rice, dals, etc. And more importantly, that which is offered to the Supreme Lord, because by eating just vegetarian is not sufficient. It has karmic reactions in it. But first offering, Yagyasishta Sinasantaha. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that all of food must first be offered in Yagya. That's called nivedana or naivedya. And then we eat prasada. Prasada means that which pleases or mercy. And that purifies not only the body, but the subtle body also, mind and intelligence. So food for the body is important, but then there's food for the mind as well. And that is desires of good quality, the desires of wanting to serve, the desires of wanting to know more about the acharyas and the supreme Lord. These are all healthy, good, clean diet for the mind. Now, if you notice all these lists that we heard, smriti, riddhi, shraddha, asha, siddhi, buddhi, these are all names of Sita Devi, or in a more general way, these are names of Lakshmi Devi. So Hanuman, actually Valmiki, through Hanuman, is reciting the different names of Lakshmi Devi as if they show up in Sri Shuktam and other Vedic texts. So he's actually performing stuti, he's offering prayers. Then the list continues. Abhutena apavadena kirtim. So adding to the list, kirti. Abhutena apavadena first, then kirtim nipatitam iva. Rama uparodha vyathitam raksho harana karshitam. Raksho harana karshitam. She is struggling, she is suffering because of being harana, taken away by Rakshasa. But she is Rama uparodha. That was the pleasure of Ramachandra was obstructed by the Rakshasa. Okay, the examples. Abhutena apavadena. Kirtim nipatitam iva. A person can be very famous, but when there is a false scandal about them, then that fame goes away. So he says, apavadena abhutena kirtim nipatitam. All it takes is one false rumor about a person. And then all that they have worked for, the good that they have done just goes away. Because people in general in this world love gossip. And they don't care whether it is true or not true. Somehow, in a bucket full of milk, one drop of poison is sufficient to destroy the milk. Like that, a person can do hundreds of good things. But one rumor, it doesn't have to be true, one rumor supposedly of what bad they have done, people in general will lap that up so well that their entire kirti becomes nipatitam, fallen, completely gone away. In Mahabharata, the section called Sabha Parva, we know the famous story that Vishwakarma had created this very special palace that was full of mystical things. What looked like a floor was actually water. What looked like water was actually floor, etc. So we know the famous story that Duryodhana also got illusioned and he stepped into it. He thought it was floor, but it turned out to be water. In all the movies, they show that Draupadi was laughing, ha, 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 ha. Blind mother's son is also blind. Actually, in Vyasadev's Mahabharata, Draupadi never laughs. In fact, she doesn't say anything. Because for Draupadi, Duryodhana is like a younger, he's not like a young, he's a younger brother-in-law. And a younger brother-in-law, Devara, is considered to be like a son. And she's very cultured, so she doesn't laugh. But the others laugh. So there's a whole, I'm not getting into Mahabharata, but Yudhishthira did not laugh. Bhima laughed. Arjuna, others also laughed. Krishna said, it's okay if you laugh. Krishna is always in that really, on that line. But Draupadi never laughed. What did Duryodhana do? that he went through the entire fight of the Mahabharata war because Duryodhana insisted that Draupadi had insulted him, and Draupadi actually did not. So that is the way he tried to taint or put blame on Draupadi. Okay, next verse. Abalam mrigashava akshim vikshamanam tatah tatah. She's like a little baby deer, a fawn, that with her big, beautiful black eyes is looking here and there out of anxiety. Have you ever seen a little baby deer getting lost? Is very, very anxious. Is always looking for her mother. And Bashpa Ambu Paripurnena. Her eyes are completely filled with tears. Krishna Vakra Akshipakshma. Krishna Vakra Akshipakshma. Akshipakshma are the eyelashes. Hanuman is able to observe that not only her eyes are filled with tears, but her black, beautiful eyelashes have all become distorted. Vakra. Why? Because of tears filling her eyelashes also. Vadanena aprasannena. With her face, he can tell she is not at all happy. Nishvasantim punaha punaha. She is sighing out of sadness again and again. So here, Krishna Vakra Akshipakshmana. The dark or black eyelashes are crooked, has two meanings. Obviously, one is very straightforward, that her eyebrows, or both Pakshmana means eyebrows, eyelid, it also means eyelashes. But you can consider sometimes Pakshmana as eyebrows. Her eyebrows are crooked, which means her face is showing severe sadness. And the other meaning we heard is because her eyelashes are full of tears. Her face is not happy. And the sadness is, the sigh and the unhappiness is, how many more days for Sri Ramachandra to come? Sri Madhavendra Puri, in the final days of his earthly pastimes, was constantly reciting this wonderful verse. It is the call of Radharani towards Sri Krishna. Ai deen dayartra natha hai. Hridayam kataram avalokya. My heart is completely distressed by not being able to see you. And I am just Daita Brahmyati. I am just wandering everywhere looking for you. Oh, my dear Lord, when? When will that day come when I can see you? So that is the mood of separation of Sita Devi. When will that day come? I have nothing around me that gives me pleasure. She's sitting in the most exquisite garden. The garden is called Ashoka. And yet, Sita Devi is full of shoka. The conditioned soul is sitting in the middle of not a conditioned soul, a enlightened soul sits in the middle of everything that is shoka, but they are Ashoka. Because their taste is different. Here, Sita Devi has absolutely no interest in all the worldly opulence. The opulence is greater than Indra's opulence. Yet, she is sitting in Ashoka garden. That's how Ravana named it, Ashoka. No sorrow at all. It's so pleasing. But she's not at all happy. Then Hanuman says, Mallapanka dharam. She's wearing, her body is dusty, mala. Panka, it is dirty with all the mud that is sticking there because it's been raining, they've been washing the garden, whatever is the case, it's full of dry and wet mud on her. Dharam, Dinam, she's fallen on the ground like a very poor, emaciated soul. Dinam, like helpless. Mandana Arham Amanditam. Mandana Arham, her body is eligible for, she's qualified for the best exquisite jewelry. Mandanam means decoration. amandita, but she's not decorated at all. Prabham nakshatra rajasya kala meghai ivavratam. Like the nakshatra rajasya, moon is the king of all the planets. Nakshatra rajasya prabham megha iva avratam, like the full moon that has been covered by a dark cloud. In the Hari Bhakti Vilas, there's a beautiful verse. Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya Jati Shastram Japam Tapam Apranasya Dehasya Mandanam Lokaranjanam. Mandanam means decoration. Mandanam Lokaranjanam Apranasya Dehasya. People decorate a dead body and they dance around. But a life without bhakti, Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya Jati Shastram Japam Tapam. So these are all decorations. Great family, supposedly all sorts of japa and meditations. Shastram, one may say, I'm reading this book, I'm reading that book. But if it doesn't evoke bhakti, then all these decorations are like decorations on a dead body and people are dancing around it. It has no meaning. And she is the nakshatra rajasya prabham. She is the prabha, the kanta, the effulgence of nakshatra raja, the moon that was covered by seasonal clouds. Another meaning is that she is the prabha, the effulgence of that moon called Rama, Ramachandra. Then, tasya samdidhehe buddhi muhu sitam nirikshya tu amnayanam ayogena vidyam prashithilam iva. Sita Devi is also looking like knowledge that has been ruined by not repeatedly studying. Muhuhu buddhi samdidihe. And Hanuman's mind was constantly doubtful. Is this Sita or not? Is this Sita or not? Looks like Sita. She must be Sita. But these are all the symptoms that she looks like Sita Devi. So she was looking like knowledge that is not, that has not been utilized by studying again and again. So one thing about knowledge is that it should be repeatedly studied. Muhuhu buddhi samdidihe. Such knowledge which is not continuously or repeatedly studied, such knowledge cannot shine or enlighten a person. And if it doesn't enlighten one, it cannot enlighten anyone else. So it's very important to study scripture every day. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya is the verse we are familiar with. But we also say Dine Dine, every day one must study Ramayana, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, or any Vedic literature and the works of the great acharyas, because that what keeps knowledge alive, awake, alert. And without proper knowledge, a soul cannot be liberated from the problems of existence. Then, Dukkhena Bubudhe Sitam, Hanuman Analam Kritam, Samskarena Yatha Hinam, Vacham Artha Antaram Gataha. Then Hanuman recognized Sita Devi was in great sorrow, but she was not decorated. Just like Samskarena Yatha Hinam Vacham, that language that is not cultured gives a different meaning. So it's very important that one become eloquent in one's communication, and one becomes eloquent by studying scripture, because like this entire Ramayana, this section, there are so many wonderful analogies to convey a meaning. But if a person's language is not cultured, it's called samskara hina. Another meaning of samskara is proper grammar. If a person doesn't know grammar, then they say something, but it conveys a different meaning than what they intend to. So grammar, vocabulary that is not proper, then the sentence does not deliver the intended meaning. Now, for example, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there was this situation when Vishwarupa is performing a yajna on behalf of Indra. And while he's uttering the mantra, instead of uttering the short A, he uttered the long A, or it's the other way around, one of the things. He mispronounced the word. And the meaning came exactly opposite. Instead of saying, I'm creating a demon that will kill Indra, it turned out to be, I'm creating a demon that will be killed by Indra. And that's how Vritrasura was killed by Indra. So having good culture means to study scripture. When we read, let's say Srila Prabhupada's books, when we read, we see the clarity and eloquence with which he communicates. Simple English sentences, but they remove huge layers of ignorance. Simple things. I'll give you an example of my own life. And I've said this previously. For the longest time, I used to study the Bhagavad Gita by someone else. And I've always had this question. Why in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is an inverted banyan tree being described? Urdhvamulam adhashakham ashwatham prahuravyayam. I was searching for almost 10, 12 years and I never got the answer. Some people said, that's just how it is. That's just how it is, blah, blah, blah. I get Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. And I didn't even read the first chapter. I went to 15th chapter because that's what I was always looking for. In the 15th chapter, how does it? And that was like a fantastic revelation for me. That Krishna is speaking about the reflection of a banyan tree. The reflection is in the material world, on the surface called mind. And therefore, in reflection, you see a upright banyan tree inverted. The leaves are below and the roots are up. Very simple. But such profound truths, because that is samskarena. Prabhupada's very cultured in how he speaks, how he says, what he says. Then Hanuman tam samiksha vishalakshim rajaputrim aninditam. He saw that she is a great princess that has absolutely no blame on her. Tarkyam asa sita iti karane upapadayan. So again, with great logic and deduction, he concluded that this must be Sita. Any questions, comments, thoughts? So we have not finished the chapter. We saw the more the external and then the internal. Whole list of feminine qualities Valmiki has listed. And this is how on two levels Hanuman came to the conclusion that must be Sita Devi. In the next section, few verses are fantastic verses. At least there's one is my favorite verse from Sundara Kanda, which we'll discuss next. And you will see Rupa will take help from Srila Rupa Goswami to see how the greatest ecstasy of separation is manifest and how Hanuman can detect that kind of vipralambha between Sita and Ramachandra. So we have to wait for it. I want to keep all of us on the edge of our seat, if I can. All right. Any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances.
Thank you for that verse on the bird. I remembered I searched through for the second verse also. That's beautiful.
Yeah, there are two words from Stavavali. Thank you, Prabhu. So, Prabhu, my question is that I understand that Hanumanji is taking a long time and he's deliberating and analyzing and logically concluding that, oh, she's Mother Sita. And it took like 3 chapters, like 3 classes, like 3 Saturdays. Probably next Saturday it might get over. So does it require a lot of contemplation, or is, for example, Mother Sita is quite visible. You don't have to like, um, I don't doubt Hanumanji, but my question is that you don't have to, my doubt is that you don't have to like, okay, see the qualities of her. She is this, now she is getting this kind of symptoms, and she is this. That makes things more complex, at least for me. Sorry.
So let's look at it from different angles. What is visible to the eye, we don't necessarily conclude as reality first, because it's pratyaksha, he can see. But he also saw Mandodari last time. So from a very, I'm not talking of Hanuman as the great person, I'm just talking from I guess, an everyday perspective. That everything that is visible is not necessarily reality. You need to bring in the aid of Shruti, what you have heard, into discerning whether something is Sat or Asat. Because everything looks like Sat. Therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, we hear, Ubhayor api drishtvantam. One should see Sat and Asat side by side. That's one. Second, when we take darshan of the Lord, for example, come to temple, the general method is people walk straight, stand in front of the Lord, and speak all their list of needs. But the way to come is to approach the Lord with stuti. So in one sense, this is stuti. This is the time for Hanumanji, the first time he's seeing Sita Devi. The very first time. Without properly ascertaining, he cannot just jump. First, she's in the middle of Rakshasis. He is in the form of a Vanara. And we will hear his contemplations coming up in the next chapter. So I'm going to break the suspense. He considers, if I just jump in and speak to her, what if she gets scared? And she will say, all the Rakshasis will become alerted. So I can't just jump in and say, I'm Hanuman. Because at this point, Sita will not trust anyone, because this Ravana came as a sannyasi. Remember, faith, if someone's faith is broken, you can't just go slam something else on them. That faith has to be very carefully built and preserved and nourished all over again, step by step by step. Hanuman is buddhimatam varishtham, vatatmajam vanara yutha mukhim, buddhimatam varishtham. So we are getting a glimpse not only of Sita's greatness, and we are doing stuti of Sita Devi through Valmiki Rishi, but we are also appreciating Hanuman's buddhimatam. Nothing is done whimsically, without thought, without anything. Of course, I have elongated it because that is who I am. But he's going through his contemplation. He is very, very intelligent. He's not ordinary. So it's important. And we are learning. We're learning about Riddhi, Siddhi, Asha, Buddhi, Smriti. And these are all assets we may have. And we want to make sure that these are also, or the tools and assets that are kept well, and they're actually assets and not liabilities. This is part of the Anartha Nivriti section, that we can learn where the anarthas are and what needs to be carefully removed. So we're taking a microscope and slowing it down. For example, and I've said this multiple times, the picture I think of is National Geographic video of a leopard chasing an antelope. When they first run it, it's very quick. The cheetah is running, the antelope is running, and the cheetah captures the antelope at the jugular vein, and everything is over in a few seconds. But the way they show it to us is always in slow motion. We can see the cheetah's eyes are fixed. Actually, if you notice, the cheetah's head never moves. It's always steady. The rest of the body is moving. His eyes are fixed. You can see all the muscles. You can see how the legs are how he steps on the ground with his hind legs, then the front leg. And then when he jumps, he goes straight for the jugular. So everything is slowed down because in that is all the beauty. As treacherous as it is a predatory video, there is the beauty of nature in it. So we slow things down. And that is the detail and the joy of it. He's come this far, you can't rush it and spoil it.
Yeah, that makes sense, Prabhu. And
Now you look for take example of Valmiki Rishi. We have covered 15 chapters of Sundara Kanda. Okay. In the entire Ramayana story, how long has this 15 chapters taken? A few hours of the night. That's all that has passed. So Valmiki is also slowing it down completely. The entire Sundara Kanda is less than 24 hours long. That's it. Entire Sundara Kanda is 24 hours or less, maybe 30 hours. That's it. Hanuman jumped, searched through the night, saw Sita, talked to her, burnt Lanka, came back home, all in less 24 to 30 hours. So it is important to slow it down, to go through the details and all that. Sorry,
yes,
I cut you out. Sorry, you were saying.
no, perfect. I was just appreciate. You can correct me if I'm wrong. That when we, as you told, that it's very important to hear. And is it possible to think this way? That, or is it correct to think this way, that when we hear again and again from Guru, and then that when you hear, the confidence start coming, and Hanumanji. So let's keep the Hanumanji aside. But when you keep hearing that, your vision, your contemplation, your thinking, everything becomes sharp. Your judgment, everything becomes very sharp. And what I learned from the lesson of Hanumanji is that even though you're hearing from a long time, but still Hanumanji was taking a time. His vision was very sharp. He could have concluded in fraction of seconds that, oh, this is Sita ji, and I should go there. And he knows the techniques to do everything over there. But still, he took a long time to contemplate. Even if he was, I think he was knowing this thing, but still he was taking time to understand it properly. So hearing itself is not enough, because hearing will make you confident, but that confidence can make you fall down also. Maybe.
Take the example of Hanumanji, because one of the greatest examples of Hanumanji's contemplation is Srila Prabhupada. Okay, he came to this Lanka called the Western world, and he said Prabhupada didn't do anything in a rushed way. Although in his side, if you can see, there's no age as a benefit. He's already 70 years old. But Prabhupada did not rush anything. Nor did he, as soon as he meet them, vomit out the entire devotional scriptures. He gave them little by little, and then it grew. But Prabhupada's contemplation, what is the best way that I can meet this audience? What is the best way that I can help them from Bahir Mukha to become Antaranga Mukha? It was just contemplation. Nothing was done in a rushed or hasty way. So Prabhupada's are shining example of it too, in a more contemporary application, perfect, if you want to see.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah.
When you said in the beginning of the class about moonlight, Eko Chandrahana Chatara Sahasrashaha, and you used this comparison to tell how the moonlight is actually giving grace to everybody. It's like Mother Sita is giving grace to everybody. That touched me, because until now, I was looking at this statement as the moonlight is more visible. So a great person is more visible and prominent. But the aspect of grace was something that I had never known. So thank you very much for bringing it up.
Here, Valmiki only tells us, it's not my thing. Ishtam sarvalokasya. Anything else? Okay. Let's soak in. Let's soak in the beauty and the grace, the love of Sita Devi that she has for Ramachandra. And none of it is for her enjoyment alone. It is simply for the pleasure of Sri Ramachandra. Her pain of separation that is being appreciated by Hanuman, we will hear next time when we meet. Her pain is a shining example. We hear in the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Because even Krishna wanted to know, what is it about Radharani? I'm the Vishaya, she's the Ashraya, the holding vessel of this love. What is her experience? And when we hear Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's expressions, even a stone-like heart has to move. So the consort or the Ashraya, here in this case, Sita Devi, what kind of love she has for Ramachandra. Unbelievable. And Hanuman is witnessing it. Even from a distance, he's not even spoken to her. Wait till he speaks to her. Oh my gosh. And the conversation between the two of them is fantastic. So he's only now observing, and then he is, just by looking at her, until this time, Hanumanji has not seen Sita Devi. He's only heard that there was a wife of Ramachandra who got kidnapped by Ravana. And remember, the Acharyas explained that Hanuman thought, what is this? Such a great prince, looks so much, has no... And Hanumanji already knows that Ramachandra is very, very detached from everything because a kingdom didn't matter. He made friendship with Sugriva, never went to Sugriva's coronation, although he's a king, a prince himself, lives in a cave. Very, very simple. Absolutely so detached. His senses are so controlled. Yet for a wife, he's crying like this. Come on. All he has to say is, I want to marry, and millions of apsaras can come for him. And he's eligible to marry all of them. So why is he crying for one wife like this? But now he's going to see her, and then he understands, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. He wonders, how is Ramachandra even alive? He must be very hard-hearted. That's the conclusion. Because with a wife like this, wow. So this is all Hanuman's ecstasy of revelation of Sita Devi. Because to appreciate the Supreme Lord, one has to appreciate the Lord and his consort. Hare Krishna always, Hare Rama. Never the Lord alone, always with his consort and his devotees. So glorification of devotees is very, very ecstatic. Of course, she's the consort, also the devotee. So we may, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya is not just the reading of the books. One should be glorifying the devotees. That is the joy that Hanuman is showing us. So may our contemplation be not just the Lord and the devotees can not exist for me. Our access to the Lord is through his devotees. The great Hanumanji is showing us what it means to pick and in detail learn the glories and learn to glorify the glories of such wonderful, wonderful devotees. May that Sri Hanuman constantly enthuse us, inspire us, and help our meditation and appreciation of the wonderful, wonderful devotees, those who are with us, we are with them, and those of the past that have crossed this earth and left behind this fantastic treasure of Sri Ramayana and the great works of their realizations for us. Thank you. Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Ji